Good evening and welcome to the Daily News Roundup. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, opposition not in support of extension of states of emergency. Security forces raid hideout spot of Jamaica's most wanted man. JFJ wants government to allow police to charge abusers even where the victim does not wish to proceed. Child Protection and Family Services Agency appeals to Jamaicans to take a child home for Christmas. Farmers to enjoy price cut on fertilizers. In business, gas prices go down to their lowest ex-refinery rate since February. In the region, former Premier of the Cayman Islands will not run in the next general election. Further overseas, race to restore power to homes in Ukraine being slowed by tough weather conditions. And in sports, five-time champions Brazil kick off their World Cup campaign with win over Serbia. Now for the news in detail. The opposition has given indication that it will not be supporting an extension of the states of emergency. Leader of opposition business in the Senate, Peter Bunting, says the party had already taken a position on the measure following its meeting on Monday. Senator Bunting is of the view that there is no justification for the states of emergency. He believes the measure is driven by a political agenda. He says, quote, "It is a diversion from the garbage that is piling up in communities all across Jamaica, from the crisis in the healthcare sector, from children going to school and PATH students not being able to get lunch. This is just a diversion. It is not a situation that was contemplated in the Constitution," end quote. The government used its majority in the House of Representatives on Tuesday to approve the extension, while the opposition MPs voted against it. One attorney at law, John Clark, says plans by the government to table legislation that would impose a mandatory minimum sentence of 30 years imprisonment for murder should be based on data. Currently, the minimum sentence for murder in Jamaica is 15 years and the ultimate penalty is life imprisonment. Mr. Clark says he does not see these changes as necessary and argues that the proposal could lead to a greater backlog in the criminal justice system and add to the increasing prison population. Another attorney, Isat Buchanan, has argued that a harsher penalty for murder will not be a deterrent. Mr. Buchanan says while he understands the frustration of the public and the need for the government to act, the state will not be able to successfully fight crime without fixing other social ills plaguing the society. With more than 1,300 murders committed since the start of the year, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced in the House of Representatives on Tuesday that more legislative changes were coming to address the high rate of homicides island-wide. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck has been directed to review the penalty for murder. The Joint AntiGang Task Force raided one of the many hideouts of Jamaica's most wanted man, Nesta Bigger Crime Morrison, in the 11 miles area of Bull Bay, St. Thomas on Thursday. The operation yielded the seizure of 2 assault rifles, a 9mm pistol, and 108 assorted rounds of ammunition. Several other items, including cell phones, counterfeit U.S. currency, bank cards, and food items, were also found. The security forces continue to encourage Morrison to surrender immediately. In the meantime, anyone with knowing the whereabouts of Nesta Bigger Crime Morrison or any other gang members are asked to contact the nearest police station, Police 119 emergency number, or Crime Stop at 311. And security forces seized 22 illegal firearms and made several arrests during the recently concluded gun amnesty. Among those arrested for illegal possession of a firearm was a 15-year-old boy. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the disclosure during the sitting of the House of Representatives recently. The Prime Minister, while expressing sadness of the arrest of the child, notes that the government has to treat gun crimes seriously. Under the new Firearms Act, the 15-year-old boy faces up to 15 years in prison. More than 100 firearms and 3,000 rounds of ammunition were handed over to the authorities under the amnesty. Executive Director for Jamaicans for Justice, JFJ, Michael Jackson, is calling on the government to review the Domestic Violence Act to allow the police to charge abusers even where the victim does not wish to proceed with the case. Ms. Jackson says Jamaica's cultural realities call for a rethinking of how the investigation and prosecution of domestic violence is treated in the country. She says victims may be afraid to proceed with cases against their abusers for numerous reasons. She says JFJ wants to see the police empowered under law to continue the domestic violence cases as obtained in other jurisdictions. Ms. Jackson says the government must prioritize the review and updating of laws that affect gender-based violence and sexual crimes. She argues that having convened a joint select committee to review several important pieces of legislation, there has been no update from the government. The Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPSA, is appealing to Jamaicans to support its Take a Child Home for Christmas and Grant-a-Wish programs during the Yuletide season. These programs target children who are in state care, whether they are housed at facilities or in foster care. Director of Children and Family Programs at the CPSA, Warren Thompson, says especially during the Christmas season, the agency tries to promote normality for the children by giving them an opportunity to have a Christmas experience outside of the facility setting. Through the Take a Child Home for the Holiday initiative, Jamaicans are being encouraged to open their homes to wards of the state. The director says that is a part of their overall goal of placing children as best as possible in the family environment. He adds that the aim is to move away from institutionalization. To participate in this program, individuals are asked to visit the website at www.childprotection.gov.jm for more information. The number of road fatalities since the start of the year is close to surpassing last year's 480 mark. To date, 425 people have been killed in over 300 road crashes. The Road Safety Unit, RSU, says there have been 370 fatal collisions since January. It reveals that the top three categories with the highest number of fatalities were motorcyclists with 126, pedestrians with 87, and private motorcar drivers with 80 fatalities. It states that the main cause of road fatalities was proceeding at excessive speed with no regards to condition. Further statistics reveal that 84% of those killed were males and 16% were females. Since the start of the year, some 27 children have died in road crashes. The RSU says vulnerable road users account for 57% of the road users killed to date. St. Catherine accounts for 15% of the overall road users killed, while St. Andrew recorded 13% of all road fatalities. And there is some good news for our farmers. Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Pernell Charles Jr., is welcoming the third price cut on fertilizers for this year. Amid rising input prices for farmers, fertilizer manufacturer Newport Ferson Jamaica Limited has announced relief for farmers with a price reduction. Farmers will now see an average price reduction of between 2 to 11% on traditional standard NPK granular fertilizers. The price adjustment will also be extended to Ferson's booster line of improved fertilizers, whose new prices will be between 3% to 14% lower than some traditional granular standard fertilizers. Minister Charles says the relief is timely and will help to cushion the impact of farmers getting back into the field at a quicker pace following the effects of the recent adverse weather systems. He adds that as farmers get back into production quickly, this may mitigate price increases on crops and supply concerns of scarce produce. Minister Charles says the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries continues to work tirelessly to provide support for our farmers during this critical time. And Minister of Transport and Mining Audley Shaw has announced that a second transport centre is to be built in Montego Bay, St. James next year. A 3-acre section of land owned by the Jamaica Railway Corporation has been deemed a good fit for the project. Minister Shaw notes that the plan is to build a facility that is twice the size of the existing one that drivers of public passenger vehicles have often complained is not big enough. Their complaints have grown louder recently with a police push to get them off the streets as part of a wider move to restore public order to the streets. The new facility will be known as the Southern Transport Center and will also be used by Montego Bay Metro buses. The Transport Minister says the project will be jointly funded by his ministry, the local municipal corporation, and other government agencies. In the meantime, the current center, located on Barnett Street, is also set to benefit from some work, including the construction of additional public bathrooms. And in business news, motorists can breathe a sigh of relief as the prices of all categories of fuel saw further declines effective Thursday. The cost of a liter of 87 and 90 gasoline will again be reduced by $4.50, their lowest ex-refinery rate since the first week of February. Additionally, $4.50 will be shaved off the cost of diesel, ultra-low sulfur diesel, and kerosene for a third consecutive week. The price of propane goes down by $1.14 and butane will go down by 75 cents. And in the region, former Premier of the Cayman Islands, Makiva Bush, has announced that after almost 4 decades in politics, he will not run in the next general election in 2025. This was the first time he had confirmed that he would not stand for election. The former Premier's announcement followed news that he is the subject of yet another police investigation in relation to a sexual assault allegation. When making the announcement, Bush made no mention of his recent legal troubles, instead questioned the loyalty and honor for his service. And down in Trinidad and Tobago, their government is looking to establish a junior stock exchange similar in model to Jamaica's. The Twin Island Republic's Minister of Trade and Industry, Paula Gopi-Scoon, says attempts to establish the platform have so far been unsuccessful, so the decision was taken to come to Jamaica to learn more. Ms. Gopi-Scoon says the Trinidadian government is looking to attract small and medium-sized enterprises focused on receiving capital investments for listing on the proposed junior stock exchange. The local junior market, managed by the Jamaica Stock Exchange, allows investors to channel capital into listed small and medium-sized enterprises. And on the international scene, the race to restore power to homes in Ukraine is being slowed by strong winds, rain, and sub-zero temperatures. Today is the second day of desperate work to keep Ukraine's lights on. Most power plants are now supplying energy to the national grid after they were temporarily shut down on Wednesday when Moscow sent a barrage of missiles to target energy generation facilities in its latest effort to cripple Ukrainian infrastructure. So far, power has been restored to critical infrastructure facilities in all regions: boiler houses, gas distribution stations, water utilities, sewage treatment plants. However, there is still a deficit of electricity in the system, and Ukrainian authorities are engaged in the delicate work of trying to balance the national power grid, leaving many households without electricity. And in sports, 5-time champions Brazil got their World Cup campaign off to a winning start with a 2-0 victory over Serbia in their Group G contest on Thursday. The Brazilians failed to find a way past Serbia in the first half and were held at bay for the first 16 minutes of the second half before Richarlison pounced to make it 1-0 in the 62nd minute. The Brazilians were again rewarded when Richarlison got his second in style with a spectacular overhead kick. However, the team will be without stars Neymar and Danilo for the next match due to injury. The Brazilians take on Switzerland on Monday. Meanwhile, Cristiano Ronaldo created history as Portugal copped a 3-2 win over Ghana in their Group H contest. And that's it for your news roundup for today and for this week. I am Abigail Smythe. Have a great weekend and see you next time.